Hello, welcome back. Last time I talked about some cards I was excited for from Edge of Eternities. 3 weeks later, surprise, there is a coinciding alchemy set, and I'm going to be talking about the alchemy cards here. Now, in terms of what formats I'm going to be talking about them in, mostly historic, partly timeless. I have just no clue when it comes to alchemy. I'm not even one of those kind of mindless alchemy haters. I just don't have an interest in it. But let's get on with this. Up first is a pair of cards I think are the second most exciting prospects from the set. First, let's talk about Trix Interlacer. So one colorless main artifact. Your eyes should already be open a little bit. You should be paying attention at this point. Starting intensity 0, whenever an artifact enters, its intensity increases by 1, and you can tap, sack, draw X cards, where X is the amount of artifact, its intensity rounded down. So what does this card need to do to be good? Well, if you're drawing one card, that is pretty bad. If you're drawing two cards, that's okay. So this is a good card. Although if you're drawing two cards after like 3 turns, I'd say that's a bad card. So ideally, you'd want to be drawing 3 cards by around like 2-ish, 2.5-ish turns after this hits the battlefield. So is that doable? And in what decks is that doable? I do think you need to be a dedicated artifact deck because you need 4 intensity counters fast, so you need the artifact lands, you need some 0-mana artifacts. But in an artifact deck, you can do that. You can do that actually quite easily. So what does the ceiling look like in a dedicated artifact deck? Well, you play a turn 1, you play your artifact land, you play another random artifact, maybe you play a 0. The next turn you play another artifact land, and like another artifact land, and you're drawing 3 by turn 3 if you play this on turn 1. And that is great, especially since this will be making mana in quotation marks when you're casting your affinity spells beforehand. So yeah, no, this card I'm actually very excited for in Infinity. Up next is a card I'm a little more curious about, although it does have very high potential as well. So it's a 1 green mana artifact. When it enters, draft a card from its spellbook. Its spellbook is essentially a bunch of random lands from the bonus sheet, and it can tap to add a mana of any color for land abilities. Now, when was the last time we had an artifact, 1 mana artifact that entered and drew a card? Arkham's Astrolabe, what happened with that card? It got banned in basically every format. What happened before Arkham's Astrolabe? Well, there just wasn't one. There's been one ever artifact that entered, just drew a card, no questions asked, and it got banned everywhere. So this is obviously worse than Arkham's Astrolabe. However, there are some very striking similarities. You draft a land. A lot of these lands can tap for manas of color. So this is in a way color fixing, as was Arkham's Astrolabe. You do only draw land, which is kind of terrible, but this can serve as ramp. If you've got, say, Great Hall of the Citadel, you've got the Great Hall of the Citadel for Planeswalkers, you've got Nykthos maybe. Like, there's ways to turn this into real mana. It's kind of hard, but there are ways. And I mean, worst case scenario is just a 1-mana artifact that enters, draws a land, and then you've got an artifact on the battlefield for affinity and whatever you want. So I'm a little less excited to try this, but I do think there's high potential here. Mutable Pupa. So it's a 1-mana 1/1, evolve, so whenever a creature with greater power comes enters, it gets a counter. And this has the text, the same is true for basically every keyword. Now, Evolve is an ability that's a lot better than you think. Evolve used to see play in some older formats. The Evolve cards were bad, but the Evolve itself was what made them playable. I haven't really put too much thought into what kind of cards this would pair nicely with. I just know that this has all the right text to where you really should be looking at this with a closer eye than maybe you would think normally otherwise. And because I haven't thought much about it, I don't have much to say about it. Let's go to the next one. We got a spacecraft this time. It's Candela, Ages of Adagia. Said that wrong, almost assuredly. It's a 1 white mana artifact. It kind of draws a card on ETB. When it enters, you return up to 1 target creature you control to its owner's hand. It gets perpetually +1/+1. It's also flash, so this is a way of saving your creature if the opponent's going to remove it. I'm actually not too high on this card. You need good, cheap creatures that ETB and do something. If this just said any permanent, I'd be really, really, really excited to try it out. Unfortunately, like the best ETB abilities on low mana creatures is like you're starting at 2, and even then it's just like Fibble, Fip, Wall of Omens, draw a card. You've got Ingenious Smith, so I guess that Ingenious Smith would make sense in a deck that's kind of focused around artifacts. Candela would make sense in a deck that's kind of focused. There's a little bit of synergy there. Not too high on it, whatever. Let's just do Gravitic Herald. Another card I just kind of don't really know what people are going to do with. It's a 3 and a black, 2/4, lifelink, enters, seek a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less. It gains a warp 0 until end of turn. You lose 2 life. This card's pretty cool, right? Non-land permanent. That restriction isn't too intense, so you can always get a 3 mana or less non-land permanent, assuming you're just playing spells. It's not like you have to play everything a 4 mana or greater. You can play, if you're timeless, like Source of Plowshares, Lightning Bolt. If you're in Historic, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize. You can play all the nice, cheap removal. And then if you have some kind of combo card, or maybe what the play is in Timeless, you have 4 Necropotents, and you have 4 of this, and you're just running your Thoughtseize. I guess in that deck you want Chromox, maybe not that. There's almost assuredly a deck out there that wants to find a non-land permanent 3 or less all the time. This is a good way of doing that. In terms of just like a fair deck, I mean, it's kind of okay. Not too excited about it though. There's a lot of good 4 mana cards. Alright, here are the actual first place contenders for most exciting cards of the set. 2 land-focused ones. Let's go with the left one first, the Ambassador of Evendo. So blue-green 1/3, landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, a random land in your library perpetually gains. When this land becomes tapped, draw a card. Okay, what happens when you put that ability on a normal land? Well, that's Library of Alexandria. Except for it doesn't draw a card when it becomes tapped. You have to specifically tap it to draw a card, so you can't make mana when you do draw the card. And you have to have exactly 7 cards in hand. Still ended up banned in every single format, including Commander. I believe it's restricted in Vintage. It is restricted in Vintage. I know that for a fact. So this is really good. You have to pay 2 mana up front, though. And a random land in your library. So wherever you're playing this, you basically have to have a way of searching up lands. What are the ways to search up lands? In Timeless, you've got fetch lands, although fetch lands can be a little bit iffy, because what if the fetch land itself gains that ability, then that's kind of a waste. So it's like, eh. You've also got cards like Elvish Reclaimer and Knight of the Reliquary, which Wizards has very smartly decided to push that type of deck, using those type of cards into the sky. Like before Edge of Eternities, the deck was kind of totally mediocre. Then out come a bunch of lands, and then out comes these land-specific payoffs. Not payoffs, pardon, just like synergy cards that seem busted. When you can tutor out a land on turn 3 after playing this on turn 2, you've got a busted land. I don't think you can ever win that game, assuming it's not against aggro or combo. Or sorry, you can never lose that game once you get the land out. So very, very, very high on the Ambassador. It's also worth noting that it sacks to Flare of Cultivation. Unfortunately, you can't just do this immediately on turn 2, but if you were to wait till turn 3, you play a land, trigger the landfall. You then sack it to the Flare of Cultivation. If it so happens that a basic got that ability, you can immediately search up the basic, so that's pretty cool. I guess let's talk about this next card here, the Hydroponics Architect. So 1 mana, 1/2 flying. When it attacks a random land in your library, perpetually becomes a basic island. And whenever this enters, you draw a card. This card's insane, especially for Timeless. So Timeless, you play this turn 1, you attack on turn 2, you play a fetch land, you fetch out the island, it enters, you draw a card. You do this again your next turn, your next turn, your next turn. If a fetch land becomes an island, that's like a free fetch land for your next turn to keep the chain going. This card's busted. Just 1 mana. It's like Tameo where you don't have to pay the mana to sack the clues. So Timelessness is great. What about Historic? Well, in Historic we've got Prismatic Vista as the only good fetch lane, so that's a possibility. I think this also could be good for if you're going to be playing Elvish Reclaimer and either Reliquary. This could be another good creature for that deck. Although it seems mostly just really, really, really busted with fetch lands. Caveron Consumed. Now, this isn't a matter of not knowing what this is going to go into. This is obviously going to be like, you put your Portal to Phyrexia, your Atrax, or whatever, onto the battlefield, and it gains haste. And the thing that excites me about this card is that this saw play in Modern in the form of Emrakul's, whatever, something, Through the Breach. That's the card. And that was very, very, very playable. Now, part of that playability was that you're attacking with 13-13 or 15-15 in the air. This makes it a 4-4. So most likely you're going to be doing that new Spaceship, which enters it, deals 4 damage to everything, and it's this Drizzle an online permanent, or Portal to Phyrexia, or just a big artifact. I mean, you could also do a creature if you put in the Traxa, that's 5 mana, draw 5, attack for 4, lifelink. That's very good. So this has the essence of a card that's powerful. I don't know if it will be powerful. Another very interesting card, the Monoist Gravliner. So it's a 2 mana, 2/3 spacecraft, 6. Once it's at 6, it's a Flying Death Touch to lifelink, 2/3, so not too bad of a body. The interesting part, whenever a creature stations it, it perpetually gains lifelink and death touch. Now this is good just normally, fairly, right? You play this turn 2, turn 3, you play your fair mid-range creature, you tap it, it gets lifelink, death touch. Probably not. There are definitely ways to abuse this though. Any creature that can do 1 damage to any target, if you give that death touch, broken. If we ever get Walking Ballista, I think this will see play alongside it. That would be a really fun synergy. I couldn't even begin to tell you what good cards do 1 damage, but good effect, unique effect. We should keep this in mind when looking at other cards. The last card on the list, we got Mind Security. It's a 2 mana, 3/1 trample. So just a playable body. When it enters, though, you conjure a card named Flame Tongue Kavu into the top 8 cards of your library at random. Perpetually gains, you may pay 0 rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Now, normally it's a 4 mana creature, I believe, and it enters and it deals 4 damage to anything. If you're paying 0 for that, that's really, 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 really good. Now, I have seen people talk about playing this in a blink deck where you just play this and you blink it and you blink it and blink it, and all your top cards are these Kavus, and you're constantly blinking the Kavus and they keep doing 4 damage until the opponent dies. That actually sounds very powerful, that's the word. But what makes me happy about this, and most of the cards on the list, is that these are just good gameplay cards. They're not obviously doing something super linear. There's a lot of build around potential. You're doing fair stuff. It's not over the top value. I'm very pleased with this set, and I'm very happy, very excited to be playing with these cards this coming Tuesday. And with that, I'll end the video. And with that ending of the video, I will end the video and an infinite loop and blah blah blah. Help me win the paradox.